Yo, so we've gotten the fan translations of Boruto chapter 16, and this chapter is actually looking surprisingly good. I must say, I was expecting a slightly slower paced chapter, where they discuss the plans for the Sand Village recovery mission, but it seems as though there are still a fair few revelations that are uncovered in this chapter, which is very interesting for the future of Boruto. Anyways, the chapter itself comes out on November 20th, so I will be releasing a chapter review around that sort of time. If it's not on the 20th, then you can expect it to be on the 21st, but if you do want to see that video, then make sure to subscribe so YouTube recommends that video to you once I make it. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into these spoilers. So I won't be going over exactly what happened in detail, just so I can leave some stuff to go over in the chapter review, but I want to give a quick rundown of what happened and my reaction. Anyways, the chapter begins with Kashin Koji explaining the flying Raijin jutsu to Boruto in the past. Kashin Koji explains that the Otsutsuki use a similar technique, which is simply space-time ninjutsu to teleport about. He then says that Boruto has been able to manifest this a few times on his own now, but they were simply outbursts that came under limited circumstances that Boruto won't be able to reproduce. He then explains that Boruto, in 6 years, mastered his own flying Raijin, where he marked different pieces of metal and used them to teleport, which created a similar jutsu to the space-time ninjutsu, where Boruto could fly and teleport to different locations. Kashin Koji explains that Boruto's jutsu was inferior to the likes of Minato and the Otsutsukis, but this is where it starts getting slightly complicated, and I think relying on the fan translations may skew your view on the situation, so I will be brief for the next part. But essentially, Boruto would struggle to travel long distances because he wouldn't be able to identify which piece of metal were which, making it a gamble as to which metal object he would actually end up teleporting to, which is extremely inefficient. So apparently, future Boruto came up with a system where he uses different shapes so that he can distinguish a difference between them and know which object he would end up teleporting to. However, what I'm confused about is Boruto has free reign to fly about, but Kashin Koji said that Boruto won't gain this ability. So that is slightly confusing, as according to Kashin Koji, the Otsutsuki's ability to fly comes directly from the space-time ninjutsu. However, only Kawaki has the abilities of the space-time ninjutsu from the Otsutsuki, whereas Boruto and Ada can fly without it. So maybe this will become a little bit more clear once we get the official translations. But going back to the chapter, Boruto explains to Kashin Koji that he is willing to take any learning process needed one step at a time. As previously, Kashin Koji told Boruto that he may not necessarily struggle with using the jutsu itself, but maintaining consistency and traveling over long distances will be a struggle, and hence he will need to do a lot of training in order to become proficient in it. This is interesting, as this theme I've mentioned a lot on this channel, where Boruto became so strong during the time skip because he was willing to learn things, completing the full course, rather than taking shortcuts and having gaps in knowledge like he would previously, in order to reach the end result quicker, which is a large bit of character progression for Boruto's character, and it shows how much he has matured as a person. Anyways, we jump from the training to Boruto and Kashin Koji having a chat where Boruto asks that if Kashin Koji sees a positive future, why not tell everyone to stick to that future and everything can move towards that good future that he foresees. But Kashin Koji explains that the more people know about their future, the more their current timeline deviates from heading towards the future they want to achieve. And apparently the more he tells Boruto or other people, the more futures will emerge due to people acting differently after knowing about their future. Hence making 10 directions completely meaningless, since it will be impossible to determine which future will occur, being so many new ones will come about. Those who become aware of the future become points of singularity, and that means they have to support others who are unaware of the future and guide them towards that good future that they are aware of. Kashin Koji then says that Ada will also become a point of singularity, since he can foresee her viewing the conversations between Boruto and Kashin Koji. Anyways, we jump to the present, as it turns out that whole flashback was actually Ada looking at snippets of Boruto's training and his interaction with Kashin Koji, since it looks as though Sarada and Sumire have asked her to look into what happened with Boruto during the 3 years that has made Boruto not want to talk or interact with them. Sarada is still pressing Ada, as Ada explains that Boruto just doesn't want to get them hurt, and Sarada doesn't care and asks Ada to find Boruto's location, as she doesn't want him to hold this burden all on his own. But Sumire stops her and tells Sarada that there is a reason why Boruto doesn't want them to know where he is, and they need to respect that, showing she trusts that Boruto doesn't just disregard them and is doing all of this to protect them. Sumire tells Sarada that their best option is to leave Boruto alone, but Sarada looks concerned and says without them he could have died. They go back and forth where Sarada says Boruto is too reckless to do these things alone, and Sumire then says that it was because of them that he got put in this situation in the first place, and after that back and forth continues, Sumire then snaps and tells Sarada that she never considers how Boruto feels. She then goes on to say that Sarada knows Sumire has feelings for Boruto, but despite that, Sarada ran straight into Boruto's arms in front of her, again stating that Sarada did not think once about how this affected her emotionally, and Sumire says that this isn't her place to have this conversation, and then just runs off. All while Ada is sat there loving a bit of the girl drama, as she clearly has been deprived of such emotions or situations, being a cyborg cut off from the real world. So it's cool to see how she's interacting with this quote-unquote drama right now. But unfortunately that is where the drama ends, so it will be interesting to see how this unfolds in the future chapters, and I know you shippers out there are absolutely having a field day with this moment. Unfortunately, I've never been into the shipping scene, so I don't know much about it, but if you want to see shipping videos or stuff like that doesn't simply revolve around, oh, Boruto's jougan or new big power-ups, then let me know and I will look into doing slightly more alternative Boruto videos in the future. Anyways, moving on, we then see Shikamaru having a conversation with Ada, where he asks about the Sand Village incident, and Ada just says that he is correct in what he assumed about Shinki becoming a Shinju and Gaara being the Shinju's new target. Shikamaru then says that his mind feels rusty when he talks face to face with Ada, which I just think is funny to see the effects of omnipotence or Ada's charm on a super genius like Shikamaru. Since the way you build up Shikamaru in your mind, you don't think that he would be affected by such things, but when he's around Ada, you can tell with that sweat dripping off his face that he really just isn't in the right frame of mind. Anyways, Ada then drops a bombshell that she cannot use her Senrigan to look at things in real time, and hence the vision that she saw of what happened in the Sand Village is a snippet from a few hours ago, which is actually huge when you think about it, and I guess it's Kishimoto's way of making it so Ada can't just simply spy on the Shinju and know their plans, as Kishimoto is aware that if she could do this, it would just ruin the series. So that seems to be the purpose of introducing an ability like that for Mamushi. Anyways, Ada asks Shikamaru why he has stopped trying to kill Boruto, and that she is aware of what him and Mitsuki did to free Boruto from Konoha. Shikamaru denies the allegations, but he realizes that is all futile since Ada can see everything, but Ada assures him that she will not tell Konoha, since if she does, Shikamaru will lose his position as Hokage, and her position will also be compromised, since the next Hokage in line wouldn't be anywhere near as welcoming for her to stay in the village. But also, she doesn't want to cause any trouble for Boruto, but she realizes that she said this out loud, and Shikamaru is just kind of confused by this, and Ada stumbles over her words as she realizes that she wasn't meant to say that out loud, which again, for my shippers out there, the seeds are being planted for Ada and Boruto to have something going on. It's no coincidence that the three people fighting for Boruto's love are in a friendship trio. Like, I'm just saying, that just makes a lot of sense to me. I've been banging on about Ada and Boruto for a while now, so best believe something is going to happen when Ada finally gets her chat with Boruto. And that moment there is proving that maybe Ada's mind is somewhere else when it comes to her love. Anyways, we then get to see what happened during the sneak peek 2, where Shikamaru basically asks Ada about whether Boruto's associate is Kashin Koji, since Shikamaru has spoken to some toads, and by recognizing them, he's linked it all to Kashin Koji. A flipping toad then appears out of Ada's hair and tells Shikamaru that he was indeed correct, and he then goes on to tell Shikamaru that what he is about to tell him he has to trust as well as not ask any further questions. Anyways, this moment goes back to the ideas of the points of singularity as to where there are only a few people who can know the full truth. Now before I go into what Kashin Koji states, I first need to discuss the fact that Ada seems unfazed about the fact that this toad just appeared out of her hair. This to me implies that Ada and Kashin Koji had already been talking, or at least Ada is Kashin Koji's eyes inside of Konoha, where Ada carries toads with her to observe Konoha, and Ada also tells Kashin Koji's toads about certain situations. Anyways, Kashin Koji reveals that Shikamaru can only let Konohamaru, Sarada, and Mitsuki go to the Land of Wind in order to save Shinki. And he says for some reason outside of those three, nobody else can go to help them. He then says that Ryu and Matsuri, or both of them, will show up to the Land of Wind, and he then says Shikamaru must give them three, and he also says that Shikamaru must give them a compelling reason to go, even if they don't want to do this alone. Shikamaru is confused and doesn't trust this, But it doesn't matter, and Kashin Koji continues and says that Himawari cannot be allowed to leave the village under any circumstances, since if she does, Jura will instantly find her and kill her there and then. But the reason Jura doesn't come to the Leaf Village in order to get her is because he values the resources and the culture of the Leaf Village highly, meaning that he won't come and wreak havoc for the time being. And then Kashin Koji tells them to treat Jura as their #1 customer if he were to come into a bookstore. That's actually too funny, and I'm praying that Kishimoto does this scene because that will just be amazing. Kashin Koji continues to explain that if Jura was to get serious and attack the Leaf, their chances would be less than 1 in a million. Now the glazing from Kishimoto right now is actually insane, as it feels as though every chapter the scaling for Jura grows more and more. But this proves undeniably that Jura can legit negative diff, full power Konoha with all of their tactics and everything combined, with the strength of Boruto, Damon, Kawaki, Ada, Sarada, Mitsuki, every strong character, their chances are less than 1 in a million. So what you're telling me essentially is we have to wait around for someone to randomly grow a special mushroom out of their ass, eat it, grow in power by 1,000,000,000 times, because there is no plausible way except from that scenario that they can still manage to defeat Jura in the end of this whole story. I mean, it does make sense for the jougan to appear soon if that were the case, so I guess it isn't all bad. Anyways, back to the chapter. Kashin Koji says that they need to slowly chip away at Jura's forces, but if Jura does show up, they must flee immediately. But then Kashin Koji departs, telling Shikamaru that he is grateful for Shikamaru's decision to follow his heart rather than the rules by freeing Boruto, and that he isn't forcing Shikamaru to do anything, but it is in his best interest to follow his advice to continue into a bright future. But then Ada thinks to herself, follow your heart, and we then cut to Sumire. Like, if this isn't foreshadowing that Ada has fallen for Boruto now, I honestly don't know what is. Anyways, we cut to the Wind Village with no explanation or anything, and we see Sarada, Konohamaru, and Mitsuki all looking about, waiting to meet up with the Sand Village shinobi, obviously showing that Shikamaru decided to follow Kashin Koji's guidance in the end. We then see the 3 Leaf Shinobi meet up with the Sand Shinobi, and they discuss their tactics for this mission. The Sand Village girl says that Sarada looks different, and asks if she has taken a liking to a guy. So once again, it's clear that this chapter is doing hella shipping, which is very interesting to see whether this will be a big part of Boruto's future. They then spot Matsuri and Ryu, who are standing over a dead frog, and Konohamaru's worried since it's worst case scenario where 2 of the Shinju ended up showing up. But Matsuri and Ryu then say that this toad is a clue that will allow them to get closer to Boruto, and this is where the chapter ends. And that is also going to be a wrap for this video, so if you did enjoy, then please smash the like button so this video gets pushed out to more and more people. Also, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications if you don't want to miss when I release the full chapter review, and it also helps support the channel tons. Also, comment your thoughts on this chapter in the comments down below. But with that all said, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye.